you how to draw in trend lines. If you saw my video on horizontal support and resistance lines, these are drawn in through the open and close price, just like horizontal support and resistance, but it's for the trend. So instead of using horizontal lines, you are going to draw in the trend lines. So in this example, I'm going to show you where I would draw in the trend lines. The tricky thing with trend lines are multiple people are going to see different things, and so you want to draw the most accurate line that the majority of people would see. And there can always be some minor differences, and some people will draw them in through the open and close prices, and some people will draw them at the extremes, like this line here, which is actually lower. And I like to draw the lines in through the open and close prices, but whichever one you pick, just try to stay consistent for that line. Don't, for one trend line, you don't want to go through the open and close down here and then the wicks here. You want to stay consistent throughout that line. If you're going to draw through the open and close, do it through the whole line. And so a lot of times I like to just have one trend line on my chart. So after this one was broke, I would draw in and leave this next one. The tricky part is if this upper trend line was broke and retested, you would technically be trading into this next trend line. So the main thing is to just be aware if you're trading into another trend line that someone else might see. And you know, if the majority of people see the other trend line, the price is probably going to react to it more so than your trend line if it's not a very good one. So that's the main thing. And what's tricky about trend lines is the discretion involved. So I'll draw this one back in. That one's going through the extremes. And another thing is you want to make sure you zoom out, and you don't want to zoom in so close that you can't see all the other price around you. And if you're having trouble, this is the daily chart. If you're having trouble, you can go to a higher time frame. So if you go to the weekly chart, it's going to look different. And if you can draw an accurate trend line on the weekly chart, it is going to be a very good trend line on the daily chart. And you can, once you draw it in on the weekly and you go to the daily, you can kind of fine tune it, make it go through the open and close prices or the extremes a little more accurate. But this trend line right here, I also saw it on the daily, but I wanted to show y'all on the weekly. This is a better trend line on the weekly. So we're looking for touches. There's a good 1, 2, and then it broke and retested it. If we switch back to the daily, so you can see this line here is the one we just drew in on the weekly, and that is a better trend line for long-term trading. If you're trading shorter term, these trend lines up here are fine. You can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 touches and then a good break and retest. You know, for my trading, this trade right here, I'm going to just go ahead and take this weekly trend line and this trend line out. But the purpose of trend lines is not to trade just off the trend line. You want multiple things going on. And to me, this trade right here with this trend line and this support and resistance line, somewhere in the 1975 area, this is a good trade. And these are the areas you want to look for. It's trending up, making higher highs, higher lows. It broke down, broke this trend line, broke this support and resistance, came back, retested, made a lower high. These are the areas where you want to look for to find an edge. I did not take this trade back in April. It's a lot easier to identify these, after the fact, hindsight. That's why you need to go through charts and look for these types of patterns and see how they played out. Use the back test tool, draw in, the trend lines you see, and figure out where you can accurately draw them in the best. And it just takes time. Now I can pretty much see trend lines just by looking at a chart. I can see there's one right here just by looking. There's 1, 2, 3 touches, a break, and a retest. And you just need to go through and get used to drawing these and make sure you're getting enough data. You're not zoomed in so much that you're drawing a trend line like this. Now, on the on the lower time frames, this could still be a valid trend line. It just depends on the type of trader you are. But for the analysis on this time frame, you want to have a good trend for the line. So hope this video helps show you how I use trend lines. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Just post them in the comments below.